With so many new works created by emerging authors and a consequently shrinking pool of unique ideas every year, influences are bound to happen. Chainsaw Man's Tatsuki Fujimoto, for example, stated that he was influenced by Blame's Tsutomu Nihei, who in turn was strongly influenced by Akira's Katsuhiro Otomo. Following the chain all the way down, however, all these paths taken by different and often high-profile manga authors seem to culminate in one single being: a guy wearing a cool and iconic hat, the legendary God of Manga, Osamu Tezuka. Tezuka, born November 3rd, 1928, was arguably the key figure in creating manga and anime how we know them today, earning him the titles God of Manga and Japanese Walt Disney. And in fact, early on he himself was greatly inspired by Disney, so much so that he considered himself a Disney movie buff and watched Bambi in particular over 80 times. This insane amount of Bambi screenings worked like magic apparently, as he since then in large part revolutionized Japanese manga, often being cited as the inventor of the distinctive large eye style, and also Japanese anime, where he popularized the limited animation that the medium is known for today compared to the Western more fluid approach. His cost-cutting techniques and resulting efficiency allowed him to build an empire of over 700 manga volumes with more than 150,000 pages, while at the same time producing a wide variety of different anime, many of which would be considered classics later on. And just in case you still don't grasp how amazing this guy was, and let's be honest, the hat was reason enough, he was also a descendant of the most famous ninja in history, Hattori Hanzo. What? Yep, that's how cool this guy was. So anyway, during his lifetime he would create some of the most iconic manga and anime in Japanese history, such as Astro Boy, his most famous work, Kimba the White Lion, which is often said to have been a heavy influence on Disney's The Lion King, though the jury is still out on this one, and finally what he would consider his life's work, Hinotori or Phoenix. Now, Phoenix has been around at least in a preliminary version ever since 1954, though an actual first publication took place in early 1967. As legendary and mythical as the creature on the cover itself was the fact that the story of Phoenix had to be cut short by Tezuka's death in 1989, leaving it unfinished. While not having constantly worked on it, he still made significant progress on and off over the course of several decades. Even on his deathbed, his last words were said to be, "I'm begging you, let me work." Personally, I've become interested in Phoenix myself ever since watching a top 10 manga video by old school AnyTuber Code Provider, where he would mention the famous work, how good it is, how hard it is to find, and also just how few Western folk actually know about Osamu Tezuka, let alone his life's work. Naturally, being the anime enjoyer that I am, I opted for the even lesser known 2004 anime adaptation instead, which was actually made by Tezuka Productions, an anime production studio that the legend himself founded and still produces anime to this day. Like the manga, the 13-episode anime is divided into several mini-arcs, of which the anime only adapts 5 from its rather extensive source material. While incomplete, this isn't too much of a drawback, since these small sections are merely vaguely related by the mythical Phoenix who appears in every one of them, from ancient times to times far in the future. With all that being said, let's dive in what is arguably the God of Manga's greatest masterpiece. Phoenix starts off with The Dawn, the first arc of both anime and manga spanning across 4 episodes. Here we are introduced to an ancient tribe living on an isolated island where a woman has fallen ill and is on the verge of death. Naturally, her husband tries to save her by hunting the Phoenix, a mythical creature that lives on this island, because its blood is said to be immortalizing when you drink it. This, however, ends in tragedy as the husband dies trying to kill it. Shortly after, a foreign doctor arrives on the island who actually manages to cure the woman by making use of more modern medicine, removing the need to hunt the Phoenix anymore. Across the sea, however, the queen of the foreign country of the doctor has other plans. She was made aware of the Phoenix's existence and its power, which she wants to use to stop her aging, no matter who or what stands in her way, which serves as the main conflict of this arc. Next up is The Resurrection, where the events happen around the year 3000 and within 2 episodes. Yep, and us shonen fans thought 2-year time skips were bad. Anyways, Earth went to shit for some unknown reason and humanity has since moved to the moon as well as other planets like Mars. Here our new protagonist suffers a terrible accident when researching a feather of the Phoenix he got in order to find a way to restore Earth, which led to him being operated on and half of his brain having to be replaced by an artificial one. While the procedure did go as planned, minus the amnesia mind you, he now perceives humans as alien creatures and androids as humans. Eager to find an answer to all of this, he sets out to reach the origin of the accident while also slowly gaining back his memories. The following episode goes back to more medieval times and concerns itself with the transformation arc, where the daughter of a dying lord murders his only chance of survival, a female monk with the ability to cure any illness through her phoenix feather, only to later take on her role and continue curing the ill herself. The fourth arc is called The Sun and goes on for 4 episodes. It's about a prince losing the war and getting punished by his enemies by getting his head replaced by that of a wolf's. He later escapes towards a third country where he becomes the mayor of a small village. Here he also gets involved in an ongoing political intrigue and protecting his village's ancient gods against the forceful spread of a new religion. And last but not least, The Future, where the events happen in the year 3404. The Earth's surface has since deteriorated, forcing humanity to live underground, while a scientist attempts to recreate life forms that were wiped out in the past, but also humans themselves. The experiments keep failing, however, and a nuclear war within the underground finally kills off every life on Earth, except for the protagonist of this arc, who was given immortality by the Phoenix and is now seemingly destined to live all alone for eternity. Alright, so as you can imagine, there's a good amount of variety in Phoenix, both in setting and in what each mini-story arc is about. While the different plots are decent and can interestingly enough feel old and modern at the same time, which I will get to, what makes this series truly stand out is its theme exploration. At the forefront stands the mythical creature itself. A phoenix is a fiery bird that makes an appearance in many diverse cultures and which is reborn again and again after death, granting a type of immortality. This immortality through rebirth is arguably the most central theme within this series, being present in each and every one of the arcs, at least within the anime. The foolish search for this kind of power always ends in suffering, however, often tinted with a touch of irony accompanying it. In the first arc, for example, the dying tribe's woman isn't saved by getting to drink the phoenix blood, but instead by modern medicine made by more advanced humans, stopping the urge to find a cure through murder and immortality. The aging foreign queen across the ocean, however, keeps lusting for power and eternal life even after distancing herself from the people closest to her and even committing genocide, both directly to foreigners and indirectly to her own people. Yet when the moment of truth finally arrives, she gets so excited that she experiences a fatal heart attack before the phoenix is reborn again. In arc number 2, the main character is brought back to life several times through successful operations. Without giving away too much, he eventually ends up as a robot, making him basically immortal. The third arc deals with the topic of rebirth by creating a time loop always ending in death. The fourth arc handles it through the emergence of Buddhism, a religion where being reborn is a central topic that is not applauded, however, but meant to escape, both within the teachings of the religion itself, but also in protecting a wide variety of other non-rebirth focused religions from it in the actual plot. And finally, the last arc depicts just how terrible of a curse immortality can be from a certain point on, especially when everything and everyone around you is dying and long gone before you really realize it. And one thing that transcends every arc and plays into this theme as the overall concept as well is the appearance of the character Saruta, who takes part in each mini-story with more or less relevant roles, mostly in regards to his name and rough body type though. In certain arcs, other characters appear in this vague fashion too, which is known as Osamu Tezuka's star system. As you can tell, Phoenix makes a point in arguing that the search for immortality is foolish and always ends in suffering instead. What makes Phoenix even more special, however, is that it deals with many more of those heavy hitters such as nature and human reason versus superstition. In most of these arcs, it is never the Phoenix power that ends the suffering, but humans or nature instead. In The Dawn and The Sun, for instance, 2 dying individuals are saved through use of medicine and not the immortalizing blood that they hunt for initially. In the fifth arc, The Future, it is nature itself that is regenerating through time and unified organic matter being recycled without influence by the Firebird, claiming that the only eternal thing is life itself and that we have it from the very beginning. Then the series also explores the now classic theme of the human mind and whether robots can achieve it. This is one of the core topics in The Resurrection, where the cyborg-made protagonist sees humans as aliens and androids as humans, only to later fully become a robot himself, but still being recognized as human-like. And last of the big shots, religion, because the rest wasn't ambitious enough apparently. Religion gets mostly explored in the Sun arc, where Buddhism, again a religion about rebirth, emerges and threatens to eradicate other smaller and also older religions. Here Buddhist extremists aim to unify the multi-religion country through a single one, which also goes hand in hand in taking over the country politically as the current emperor lies on his deathbed. This is presented as religions themselves not being right or wrong, as they are merely created by humans facing hardships, but instead mankind misusing them as yet another tool to fulfill their desires. Even when the people in favor of the ancient gods succeeded in protecting their village against the corrupt government, they still lost their faith and belief in them, which made their gods leave after all. On top of all that, there are some other smaller but also quite heavy topics Phoenix tackles in various amounts, like inevitability of human warfare, mankind versus nature, the dangers of technology, atoning for your sins, forgiveness, and accepting your fate. I'm pretty sure if you pick out any of them, there will be other works that explore them on a much greater scale and with much more depth individually, but as far as sheer variety of decently well explored themes goes, Phoenix probably takes the cake. And that's just the anime. I'm sure in the manga there are many more interesting ones present. But theme exploration isn't everything. No matter how grand and epic the topics are that a piece of work handles, it needs something to fall back on when they are taken away. Thankfully, Phoenix also has us covered in that aspect with solid plots in diverse settings and without ever overstaying their welcome. With high stakes, political intrigues, lots of action especially if you're into close combat battles, some interesting plot twists and some basic but still appreciated character development to boot, Phoenix is a mostly sensical and enjoyable genre mix. There are many instances of well-regarded storytelling techniques such as show don't tell or out-of-order chronology, and it's also rather focused, going even so far as to kill off every character that hasn't got any relevancy in the current plot, though it's quite clear that some arcs are better than others. Personally, I enjoyed the Dawn the most, with the Future as a close runner-up. Third in place would be the Transformation, while the Sun and the Resurrection lag behind. Especially the last two do have some problems I'd like to address now. The Resurrection in particular can get quite cheesy, where the whole romance with a robot and some other stuff goes a bit overboard in its drama. Whereas in the Sun you get a rather rushed plot that takes on a bit too many things all at once, which makes it often quite confusing, especially when seemingly every character gets a name no matter how relevant they seem. It also doesn't help that it often jumps from perspective to perspective, though the final battle is quite nice with all kinds of creatures coming together and fighting each other. Apart from that, there are a few hiccups that plague the entire series and drag it down a bit. The biggest one is that some characters act quite nonsensical at times, like the queen who is obsessed with the phoenix, but doesn't actually hunt it the first time she orders to kill all the people there where it lives, but then just orders her army to leave. But the core issue has to do with love. In every single one of these arcs, one important character falls instantly in love with another important character, either abruptly betraying their just deceased previous partner or saving them from death, effectively providing obvious plot armor for the main heroes. This isn't always expressed in romantic love, however, but often also as the I see you as a family member type of love. And again, this happens every single time, sometimes even multiple times per arc. And don't come at me with love or love at first sight being yet another theme, because this would be an example that doesn't work, ridiculing itself, and which may only serve as a negative one where the plot takes a huge backseat in favor of a theme, which should never be the case in my view. There are some instances where the ratio of plot to theme gets a bit wacky, but overall the anime stays relatively clear in that regard otherwise. Ending on a positive note, however, Phoenix also has so many smaller, cool and clever ideas sprinkled on each of its arcs. Like there's an emerging natural rivalry of water and fire going on the island where the Phoenix lives, where rain falls on the erupting volcano's lava being turned into steam just to make for heavier rain, and so on and so forth. Then there's a life or death section where animals and humans live in a weird symbiotic relationship where they decide to not fight but support each other, only eating the animals that didn't make it out of this desperate situation, even if that includes human babies. Then there's a human with a wolf's head after surgery, which isn't really needed for the main plot to unfold, but looks cool nonetheless, I guess. Then there's a family who tries to climb out of a hole for an entire generation in order to single-handedly populate the island they're living on with, quote, hundreds and thousands of babies, end quote, that would be made possible by drinking the phoenix blood and achieving immortality. Then humanity discovers weird jelly-like alien life forms in the far future that can take on the appearance of really anything, which obviously greatly changes society and also has potential repercussions. And finally, the visualization of what probably every one of us has thought about at some point. What would happen if we were in fact immortal and cannot die, even after billions of years? The answer is probably something along the lines of observing humanity's last breath, going batshit insane, and even seeing Earth destroyed by external forces such as androids eventually. So while there is already some variety amongst the different arcs themselves, smaller ideas within each of them also help to keep them fresh individually. Phoenix is timeless. Yes, the art style is a relict of some of the earliest modern style manga. You can tell by the existence of noses alone, and they're not too subtle about it. At first glance, the art can also make it look like a kid show, the thought of which rather violent plots with mostly adults in the main role swiftly eradicate. Bonus points for me here as well, since they managed to have army battles without 3D CG, which I appreciate. While on the musical side of things, old Chinese instruments and primitive human vocal sounds are responsible for the quite solid soundtrack, with some modern influences in opening and especially the ending. Being published in the 60s, Phoenix incorporates some cliched elements naturally, yet balances that out with unique ideas and often competent storytelling that seemingly got lost in many modern series. And of course, central themes like immortality and rebirth will probably make it stand the test of time, for, well, eternity. Osamu Tezuka has guided many well-known mangaka such as the also nicknamed King of Manga and creator of Cyborg 009, Shotaro Ishinomori, as well as Devilman's Go Nagai. Other artists that he was cited to be an influence of also include Lupin's Monkey Punch, Dragon Ball's Akira Toriyama, and Naoki Urasawa, who has made a variety of popular manga at this point. One of them being Pluto, that is even based off a section in Astro Boy. But Tezuka's work itself continues to be relevant too, as the more or less recent success of Dororo shows. But Phoenix as his life's work will always remain special even among all his other creations. It is a pity that he was never able to finish the manga that spans several decades and took place in every fictional era imaginable, especially when it was supposed to have an ending that combines all the previous between past and future alternating stories with each other, ultimately culminating in the present day. Or so the theory goes. But for a piece of art about the everlasting desire for immortality inevitably leading to suffering, being left unfinished may be a quite fitting conclusion. Guys, thank you for watching. Just between us, there's a new adaptation of Phoenix coming out this year called Phoenix Eden 17, which apparently adapts the nostalgia arc of the manga, which has never been adapted before. Are you looking forward to it, and how much did you know of Tezuka before watching this video? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I always appreciate a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, don't hesitate to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.